guys, how's it going? Right, now I started in my last video about adding the 50 and 60 Hz mod to one of these Master System IIs, but I figure, hey, why stop there? You know, we've got our cool switching done, so we can get the most out of our games, especially for those who live in the PAL region. But we might as well make it look nice as well. So what we're going to do is just pull it apart, watch the other video if you need to see where the screws and that are, and for this case we're going to be working on the bottom of the motherboard, so we need to get our motherboard lifted right out. So I'll just get this one out of the way. Okay, so here's our motherboard, and you can see that here's the mods from the last video, and what we're going to start with is getting the video encoder sorted out. Now, on your motherboard you'll see where the cartridge socket is and the RF jack, sort of drawing a diagonal line between is where we'll find our Sony video encoder. Now, I have a suspicion I've seen one of these before, and if you've been watching my other vids you would have as well. These share the same video encoder as another machine, and I'll just give you a little bit of a hint as to what uses the same chip. So the amp and everything that we've got to build, the pinouts, everything is actually the same. So what I'll do is, for detailed instructions, go and watch the other one, the other Mega Drive 1 video chip. Oh, I just leave it out of the bag, I told you now. Oh well, go and have a look at that. But I'll just quickly go over, I'll do some highlights basically as to what we need to do. So we'll get our board flipped over and we'll start getting our points ready. Okay, so this is looking at the bottom of the motherboard, and it's actually pretty easy to find because every revision of these motherboards I've seen has still got the same black wire soldered across the middle of it. So look for that, and basically count along in the top row, and as a point of reference, this is the top row with our RF unit and our power connector at the top. We want to go starting on the left hand side. We need to count along to pins 15 and 16 and then pin 20. So 15 and 16 is our chroma and our luma, and pin 20 is our composite video. So I'm just going to add some solder to them, just so we can quickly come back and tack our wires on. And that's them ready, so now we need to do is just add our wires and then go off and build the same little video amp that we used to with the Mega Drive 1 mod. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, so we'll get our wires attached and then we'll go off and build our amps. So what I'm going to do is, I've actually managed to get my hands on some 6-core wire, so I've got plenty of colours to work with. If you're using the same sort of coloured wire, like if you're just using 2 wires or something, maybe get some insulation tape and a pen, and that way just mark each wire, because once you put the board back in you don't want to get confused about what's what. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a blue wire here for chroma. So I'll just get that attached to pin 15, just like that. And I'm going to use a white wire for our luma. So I'll just get that soldered on to pin 16. Okay, and then we just need to add in our composite video, just in case you go to a mate's house and he doesn't have his video. So that goes on to pin 20, and I'm just going to use a yellow wire for that. Awesome. Now at this point you can go off and build your amps, or in my case I'm actually going to take a little bit more of a diversion, and I'm going to get the rest of my soldering points done while I'm under here, so that way it's all wrapped up in one go. So the next point we need to look for is our sound, and there's only going to be one point for that because these Master System IIs unfortunately only have mono. They never actually supported stereo, but that's alright because we'll hook up dual mono, so at least both the speakers and our TV or stereo go. And we also need to get a ground point and 5 volts for our Luma amplifier. Okay, so next up we're going to add in a wire for our sound. Now The chip that we soldered to before for the 50-60 Hz switch also, and you'll see the little hole there where I've pulled the leg out in the last video. This chip also has our sound, and basically, as before, having our RF module at the top, the top row of pins, we need to count along 15 pins. So we need to count along and find pin 15. And once we find it, we'll just add a little bit of solder to it. And you've got to be a little bit careful with this particular wire, because you'll notice just up here is a hole where one of the screws comes through for our cartridge slot, which is right beside it. So you need to be a bit careful that you route your wire around and it doesn't get in the way, because there's actually a support that goes under this that it will very easily crush any wires that happen to be in the way. Okay, so all we're going to do is just, I'm going to use a green wire in this case, and we're just going to quickly solder it onto pin 15. And when we go to actually attach it to the sockets, I'll show you a trick so that you don't need to buy a splitter later on. Okay, so all we need now is just power and ground. Now, ground's really easy because pretty much this strip that runs right around the outside of the motherboard, that's all ground. So you can basically pick any point that you think is going to be convenient and just add your black wire to it. So what I'll do is, this is the solder point for the RF jack. So I'm just going to add a bit of solder to that, just get it to flow again, and now just solder in my black wire to that. Just put a bit of heat in and we'll just get our wire into there. Nice and easy. Okay, so the last wire we need to attach. We're going to attach directly to the bottom of our voltage regulator. So just look on the bottom of your motherboard for the 3 pins with, hopefully if you've left it in there, the little screw sticking through. And with our RF socket at the top still, the leg we need to solder to is the one that's closest to the cartridge socket, so it's the inner leg here. So we'll just add a little bit of solder to it. And now we'll just attach our red wire, because that's going to be our 5 volts, and we're going to use that to power our Luma amplifier. Okay, time to get building some amps. Okay guys, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to build our amplifier circuit for our Luma, and parts you're going to need is just one 27 ohm resistor and one of these little wee NPN transistors. That's all we need for the Luma, so yeah, we'll get that attached. But if you're out doing the shopping, we need to do the chroma, we're going to need a 220 microfarad capacitor, and we're also going to need a 75 ohm resistor. And again, as we do with all of them, for the composite we'll need a 220 microfarad capacitor and a 75 ohm resistor for that, and that's about it. So just going over that again, if you're online looking for what parts to buy, you'll need one NPN transistor, one 27 ohm resistor, and if you're fully modding it like I am, you're going to need two 75 ohm resistors and two 220 microfarad capacitors. Things like the resistors now are usually sold in like a 5 or a 10 pack anyway, so just make sure you get enough capacitors. And whenever you're doing this, and if you're online shopping for it, and since you're already paying the freight, never hurts to get a few spares, because you'll sort of be noticing by now with a lot of my videos we use the same parts over and over, and most of you guys have definitely got more than one machine, so once you get a taste for modding, it's sort of hard to go back, so stock up. I'm just going to put some holes in just for our sockets to go through. Okay, so now I've got all the holes in place for my sockets. I'm just going to go and get all those mounted up, and then we can start getting some wires attached.